I'm trying to fix this thing on an angle.
P,
Yeah. Wait. Yes.
we are live now.
Hello, everybody. We're back in our studio with our award-winning publisher, for whom the Globuntubooks have won awards, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation tonight. Welcome, Beatrice.
Thank you, P. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. We have been having these conversations for so long, so I look forward to it every day.
Good. So what are we going to talk about tonight?
Listen, first of all, greetings to Japan, to you, over to you, to Japan, all the way from South Africa. We are talking across the continent today, and that is going to be the central point of today's book launch. Today, we are talking all about asking the question, where is Africa? We're going in search of Africa. And we're continuing the journey that we started yesterday with book one. Let's talk about Africa, that invitation. And we're going deeper into it now with a question.
Hold on.
With a question about the location of Africa. And let us greet our guests out there on Facebook and YouTube. If you're joining us, we see you, we acknowledge you. We want to say a hearty hello to you. It's another Globuntubooks launch. And please make sure to participate. This is a conversation we're having. If you have questions for us, please drop them in the comment box. On YouTube, we're not able to pick questions, but we're picking questions on Facebook. We have to make arrangements to pick YouTube. So use the comment box and drop your comments or your questions. You have been participating wonderfully throughout the book launches. Pete, this is day 20. We've been doing this for the past 17 days. Consistency.
I know. I've never been on Facebook this much in my life.
Every day.
I kind of not like to be on social media a lot, but I've been thinking, boy, I'm out there all the time. I have a question for you. You said that you wrote this book, Where is Africa? Who the heck still wants to know where is Africa in this day and age when Google is your friend? I mean, that's what the smart kids ask me. Auntie, Google is your friend. So who still wants to know where is Africa?
That is a very interesting question. And I did that particularly. When you look at the book covers, first of all, what do you see? Do you see anything?
Upside down.
Upside down, right? We turn Africa upside down deliberately. In the first thing, Africa is turned upside down. So let me tell you something. When I posted these covers, a lot of my friends wrote back to me on Facebook and said, Beatrice, there is a mistake on the book cover. The Africa is turned upside down. Can you fix it, please? And
Perfect.
So I laughed because that was the intention. Had I put Africa properly, no one would have come back to me. Okay. So also, who tells you that Africa has to look like this? I mean, the map that we have of Africa is from our colonial history, right? So who says Africa must look like this? So it could have been the other way around, right? So this series is questioning things. We are questioning things. We are looking for answers. We are questioning things from our perspective. So you will see that sometimes we tend to ask some certain questions that, and let's say someone will say, what the heck is that question? Is it right?
Yes.
Is it a good to ask? So like, where is Africa? That is how we get your attention. Asking who in this time and age wants to know where Africa is. Of course, we all want to know where Africa is.
I felt that people should know this already,
Pete, we think that we know a lot of things. We have learned a lot of things the other way around. And we are here to invite us, all of us, including me, to relearn some of the things or to learn them from another perspective, learn them through another pair of eyes, learn them from a different standpoint. And asking the question, where is Africa, is one of the questions that I got asked to me a lot when I was in Austria. Remember, I said yesterday that the first three books are very much in reaction to the answers. They are very much answers to in reaction to some of the questions that I got asked or my children got asked that we deemed, what a stupid question. So children in kindergarten would say like, where is Africa? Is Africa in Germany? Is it in Russia? I get those things. Kids ask you those things, and even some adults. There's one adult in Austria who asked me like, how did you get here from Africa? And I said, I walked, and then I went on horseback.
I know those questions. I had some silly questions like that, and I showed some silly answers. I said, I fly, wings.
And she believed me. It was in an exhibition. It was in a gallery. Yes, she believed.
No.
And then people stood around us, and some people started laughing. What you may think that you know certain things, but not everyone has the degree of knowledge that you have. There's some people out there who have never been to Africa, go to some of the deep villages somewhere. Some people have never even heard the word Africa. The people who have never heard about Black people. And so when you come asking the question, where is Africa? It may sound in some ears, it may sound like a stupid question, but in some ears, it's a question that calls for, attention to say, yes, Africa, what is that? Is it a dessert? Is it something sweet, or is it a main dish? Where is it? Is it a country or a continent? So that question, where is Africa, was very strategically put up there as the title of the book. And today, P, we will do the same thing. I'll walk you through the book so that people see what is in this book. If you're watching, you see what is in the book. We love to show people what we package, what we're putting out there.
All right.
So, when you're ready to order your book, you know what it is about. So our sister from Germany is here. Sister Cornelia, we see you. Sis Cornelia, she says, greetings, powerful ladies. Greetings, powerful sister.
For some reason, I don't see the live question, so I don't know where they are. Yeah, because
anyway. I'll pick them up and share with you.
Okay.
So I think what we're saying, Sis Cornelia will be very familiar with some of the questions that that we're throwing here and some of the things that we're talking about. She's based in Germany. I had that train question as well. The person believed that I arrived from Europe by train. Okay. So we'll be touching on some cliches. We'll be talking on some prejudices. We'll be talking on some stereotypes. We'll be touching on some curious questions, pressing some hot buttons, and as we move along with this conversation. Okay.
Good.
So those of you on Facebook, please join the conversation, share with us like Sis Cornelia is doing, but also if you have questions, do not hesitate to type them in. So you want me to walk you through the book, just to introduce it like we did yesterday? Okay, then I'm going to go to allowed me to go to my screen sharing. Let me go to screen sharing and jump straight to the manuscript. So let's go right there. That's it. So this is book 2. I want to take you again from the very beginning. So this is like our title page, book 2. It's also proudly approved by the Department of Education in South Africa. So we go through the normal, formal things, the dedication, and we stop first right here. That's where the question is, where is Africa? So we go to the globe, the map of the world, and we locate the 7 continents of the world. We have 7 continents, and Africa is one of the 7 continents. So that's where we start with answering that question. So, and then we have our table of content. What this book offers you is, first of all, you meet your storytellers again, and then just like we did yesterday, we get the mosquito game. It changes in book 1, 2, and 3. It's the same game, but the assignment changes. So then we have Mosquito Zangalo's challenge. Why is it important for kids to know about Africa? That's our chapter 1. Chapter 2 is, where is Africa? We go right there. That's where we go in to the title of the book. Yes. How many countries are there in Africa? how many regions are there in Africa? Regions are different from countries, and we will see the difference in this book. Um, what is Africa best in the world for? What should I read next? Towards the end, we're always asking, what should I read next? That allows us to introduce the next book. Because, like I said yesterday, you will see that some of the books that will come along this conversation they come from the research from these books. Okay. You see some of the things that happen that we find here, we go deeper in them in another book much later. So now let's get started. Here we'll give you the map of Africa. So you see how, that's the continent. You see the northern part of Africa. It's a desert. There is a big desert right there. This is the central part of Africa. This is the western part of Africa, eastern Africa, and southern Africa. By so doing, we're already touching on the regions, but we'll go in detail a little bit more later. So we have our acknowledgement, and here I'm thanking my family, people who have always been supportive to me, but also my first readers. When I published book one, I got the first reader. They are my cousins in the UK, Laura and Charlie Banksy. They were my first readers. They order every single book. And I'll sit down and I'll get a text message, Auntie, when is the next book coming? So they really encouraged me to write this book series because I knew someone was waiting to read. Now, something that I have been added along the line in the Africa for Smart Kids books is the Reader's Guide, because these books are being used in schools. So I want the teachers and learners to know how they can best explore the book. Don't just read it and put it aside. The Reader's Guide gives you a guideline on how you can best work with a book. So the target audience, it tells you about the pictures, some of the quotes that you find in here, how to go along with the Mosquito Zangalo's quiz. It tells you conversations that you can do. And P, there is something else that I'm introducing. Those people who are doing spelling bees at home, there is a program that has come out of the Africa for Smart Kids book. I call it Spell Africa. Know Africa, Spell Africa, Own Africa. Okay, so it all comes out of these books. It allows you to learn not just the countries, but to learn how to spell them. So it's a program that comes as a byproduct of the books. So you can do quizzes when you read this book. And at the end of every Globuntu book, this is something very important, very particular for Globuntu books. You have the Globuntu books life plan. And I'll show you how the plan looks like, because we want to use this book, like you rightly said yesterday, P, to say we are not chewing it and giving it to people to say this is what it is. We are enticing them. We are inviting them. So we want them to be active. We want to engage them. And therefore, this book, the Globuntu Life Vision Plan, allows you to plan your life after you read the book, because we are assuming that your perspectives will be changed. So you learn some new information. You will become curious. And from that moment, something changes in your life, and we give you a plan on how to plan your life. Okay, so those are the kind of information you'll find. This book was prefaced by my mom. So this is my mom who brought me up. I started living with my aunt when I was I think 8 years old, and I grew up literally with her. So she's like my mom, and I was very happy when she did the preface. So
I like that. I kind of like that when you bring in like family members and you make it something for the home as well, so that,
yes,
because sometimes the people in your life are the ones who might least appreciate what you're doing. But I'm really happy to see that the people at
yeah.
home are becoming your readers as well.
You will see in some of the books, the preface is done by my young readers. I go for them and I say, come tell me, what is it that, what does the book do with you? What is it that you want to say? So as we go through the book, you see that I engage people who are around me. We're building a legacy. So you want everyone who is important to you, whether they are your readers or your family members or your friends, you want to make sure that they're part of this legacy. So about this book, there is that short introduction, and again, you meet your characters. There is something that I want to add here, P. In each one of the books, the characters are dressed differently, and this textile comes from a different African country. Okay, in book one, the fabric came from Cameroon. In book two, in this book two, we went to Senegal. No, this is Ghana. Different forms of textile in Ghana. This is what I clothed them with. Is it Ghana? Yeah. Yes, and then we have the Bogolang also, Bogolang from Western Africa. Now you see,
What is
those are
Bogota?
so this is Ngwise, this is Atabong, and then we have our Prince Fuareke dressed like, very elegantly, like an Ashanti queen, king,
Wow.
Ashanti
Pink.
prince.
Yeah.
That's it, because we want, when African kids, when Black kids pick this book, every page, everything that is in the book should remind you of your heritage, should give you an insight. We're not doing a book on textile, but we add it right here. Every little piece is thoughtfully and carefully picked and placed here so that it tells you, it expands the story that you're about to read.
Right.
So here we have our mosquito quiz, and then we go right down and start with chapter one. Why is it so important for every child to know about Africa? And the first answer to that, there are a lot of, the characters, they tell you a lot of things, but one I want to pick out from one of them is that Africa is the second largest continent in the world. Africa is the youngest continent in the world, even though it's the oldest. We know that human beings originated from Africa. That makes Africa the oldest inhabited continent in the world. But we also know that it is the youngest because Africa is that continent where over 50% of its population is younger than 20. So the characters, the detectives are saying that you need to know Africa because some of your colleagues will, in the future, will come from Africa. Some of your
Right.
employees or your employers will come from Africa. You're certainly consuming something that comes from Africa. And Africa is one of the 7 continents in the world. So it is absolutely important that you know, that every smart kid knows about Africa. If you know the other continent and you don't know Africa, you only have half information about the world. So it is extremely important. And they talk about a whole lot of things in there. They will take you online to Worldometer to check the population, where you can check statistics daily, population growth, and all of that. And then they also tell you that most of the mineral resources that in the world come from Africa. If you go to the cell phone industry, some of the minerals that are used for cell phone production or for batteries, they come from Africa. And then they take you right there and show you some of them. The coltan, they show you the coltan, platinum, you see it right there. Some people know the name, but they don't know how it looks like. Arsenic, they tell you calcium, and in the book you see what all these minerals, in which African countries they come from, and for what industrial production product they are used for. Okay, so you find all of that in the book, and then they still have their conversation. And I want to take you to this part where you meet Mosquito Zangalo. He always says, "Stop, people! You've been talking too much. Let me see if you
Yeah.
understand what you're talking about." And then
Oh.
comes with some questions. And Mosquito Zangalo is always very naughty, but also very, very.
Yeah.
So here they take you, show you more, some of the more industrial and natural product minerals that come from Africa. This is showing you the different types of coltan. A lot of coltan is manufactured in Africa, and so that's that part. And then they come
Yeah.
to
I
chapter 2, where is Africa? And this is
I was
again, there's a lot of statistics in here. Yes, P.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking, you were showing all the cobalt and different things like that. I was thinking, man, I wish I had a book like this when I was growing up, you know, because like I said, the
Right,
images of Africa or the ideas that I had about Africa are so far removed from what you're trying to show here. Yeah.
right, right. Again, I write the books that I would have loved to read when I was young. When I didn't have them, there was a time when I complained. I said, no one is telling us about this, until I realized that if no one is telling, that may be your niche. That may be the story that you should be telling. Instead of wasting time complaining that no one is saying it, go for it and say it,
Yes.
right? So this
Yes.
is where I am.
Hmm.
I no longer complain. I just go for it. I don't find it. And Toni Morrison once said, if there is a book that you want to read and you can't find it,
So,
write
mm,
it. So I took
yes.
that. Oh, Kobe, I see you right there.
Yeah, he wants to be in the discussion. Yeah, I'm going to put him on my speakers.
Nice.
Yes.
So there are a lot of statistics in here in this book, and then they take you to the different regions of Africa. Africa has 5 regions, and they show you how many countries are there in each one of the 5 regions. Okay, which countries belong to each one of the 5 regions, and they show you where to get statistics online. That's the
Yeah.
conversation that we're having in that chapter. And
Mhm.
they take you to some key places. This is the cradle of humankind in Maropeng.
Yep.
It's in South Africa. P, I think when you were here, you visited the cradle of
Yes.
humankind.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
there's a lot of information in there. Some for me, very hard to digest information.
Yeah.
The way
Very
some people are
controversial. Yeah, a
right,
very, very troublesome thing. And it reminds me that when we don't tell our own story, somebody will tell our story, our origin
right,
stories. And that
right.
thing, that is very, very problematic in there. I
When you
started
hear
laughing. When I saw some of the exhibits, I laughed because you asked who made this museum, who made this thing,
right, right,
right? And so
right,
when you ask who create the product, it determines how people will view you. Yes.
right.
Yes.
And that is the key. Who made it? And I think instead of us going in some of these places and being angry about what we see there that doesn't, fit in our history or which is a manipulation or a stereotype, for me, when I see it, I just say like, okay, which book must I write now? Where should
Yeah.
I go find information? What should I do? And that is my drive. And again, these things are in here to entice people to show you some of the things that you should be looking out for. How many
Yes.
countries are there in Africa? Quite a lot of people think Africa is a country. But
Me,
P,
hold on. Let me share with the audience one
yes,
an experience. So I went to South Africa. This time last year I was there, and your smart kids came to the house, Sepang, Stacy, Mpai, and people I could not pronounce their names. When I saw them, like, how in the world do I say these names? But anyway, I got a hang of them. And when you weren't looking, one of them, Seppi said to Auntie, Auntie, how many countries are there in Africa? I looked her dead in the face and said, 108. She said, huh, Auntie, you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace, Auntie. 55. And she tell me this. She said, Auntie, Google is your friend. Google is your friend. You're a disgrace. I started laughing hard. This little kid tell me I'm a disgrace. That number out to see what they will say. Oh my goodness. And so I knew that you had them well trained, that they knew their countries and they knew their capitals, and they didn't want to give me the quiz. I said, wow. Yes.
our smart kids, they in our master classes, we don't only do affirmations, we don't only write books, we go around Africa, we learn Africa. We learn Africa. So once they got to know how many countries are there in Africa, anyone that comes across them, you take a quiz. That is the entry point. They want you to know how many countries are there in Africa. And you must
Yes.
know the names and the currencies. They are
Oh,
product of another book that we'll launch. It's called I Know My Africa from A to Z. But P,
yes. Yeah.
let's stay
Go
with
ahead.
the issue. Let's stay with this
Yeah.
issue of how many countries are there in Africa.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, in as much as we're saying today that we have 55 sovereign states in Africa, I also want to say these sovereign states were put together by the colonialists.
Mhm.
I haven't found out how many states were in Africa prior to colonization, but
Mhm.
the boundaries, the 55 boundaries that we're talking about, the borders
Mhm.
today, we must not forget
Yeah.
that they are a product of colonization. They are
Right.
the boundaries that were put there by someone who divided us. So we must always be aware of this when we talk about the 55 countries of Africa.
Right.
Because like someone rightly points out, when you look at some of the countries like Togo compared to a country like Nigeria, and when you think in the world stage, Togo will be competing with a country like China. Look how
Mhm.
big China is. China is a sovereign country, and then we have small Togo, or we have small Benin, or we have the Gambia. The Gambia, I mean, the Gambia is one of the smallest. No, Seychelles is the smallest country in Africa. It's an island. So when we talk about this, we must, at the back of our minds, we must be conscious of the history that surrounds
Mhm.
this and the impact of these 55
Mhm.
countries on our heritage and our identity.
Right.
Okay. So this is the chapter where they're introducing you into those 55 countries, and they're going into some of them and giving you the specificities. And then they compare it to Europe. They say, okay, Africa has 55 countries. Europe has P. How many countries has Europe got?
Are you? What are you trying to do, girl? Please tell
Okay,
your story.
44. 44
Thank you
countries.
very much. That's my answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I had
I,
that
I,
written down. Yeah.
wait. I see we have a comment on Facebook. I'll come to you
Okay.
right there, sisters. We're seeing you. Let's go through the book first. So they take you to just to compare to say, okay, this is the continent of Africa and this is the continent of Europe. And the back mind of our narrators, they're saying this is the continent that colonized us. 7 countries out of this European continent colonized Africa over centuries. Seven.
Wow.
They invaded and took full ownership, full control over African countries and divided them or partitioned them like pieces of cake. So this is why we're putting this map right there to say, be aware of this. We must be aware of our history and how all this comes about. So they'll take you through that chapter and talk about other things and compare some other countries with you until they come down to, then they start showing you some certain cities in Africa. This is Lagos. Lagos is the biggest city in Africa. It's a small island. Some people don't know that Lagos is an island, and they don't know that we have this kind of
Yeah,
buildings.
news to me.
And in between, they have questions. Now they take you to Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. Show you there are streetcars in Addis Ababa. Okay. Some people think the streetcars you only find them in Europe. This is in Addis Ababa. We are in Africa. So and then they'll take you right there to Mauritius. Mauritius has the biggest and oldest giant tortoise in the whole world. It's called Adabra tortoise. You only find them in Mauritius, and they are the biggest and the oldest species in the whole world. So they'll show you some of those things, and then they'll take you to Alexandria in Egypt and show you the underground, the underwater archaeological museum. There is a museum under the water in Alexandria in Egypt. Okay, so they're showing you some of those things, just dropping information there to make you curious. And from there, they'll take you to Kinshasa. This is Boulevard du 30 Juin in Kinshasa. We are in DRC. Kinshasa, I think, is the third largest city in Africa. So they're taking you right there and dropping stuff for you to become curious. Go look for more information. Go do research. Maybe go write some books. Go ask questions. People whom you know around you. If you know someone from the DRC, ask them questions. This is how we gain knowledge. And then right here, there is a quote here that I would like to read. I picked it up from the president of Rwanda. It says, "I grew up in a refugee camp in Uganda, and I lived there for 30 years. That shapes my character." Okay, so some of us were living as refugees in some countries. But this is a neighboring country. Uganda and Rwanda are neighboring country. And you're thinking like, how come, this person is a refugee in this neighboring country? And we're talking again about the boundaries that were put in place by the colonialists in Africa. Okay. But this is someone who spent so many years in the refugee camp, who is the president of an African country and one of the most progressive presidents that we know. Rwanda is one of the fastest growing economy in Africa. Even though they have a history, they went through a terrible genocide, they recover. And Rwanda is that country in Africa that has 52% of its parliament as women. 52% Rwanda's parliamentarians are women. And you can't beat this in the world. There's no country in the world that has that many women in political office. So I put this in there strategically. And you find charts in there here. They're talking about the population of the world by 50-50. And we're saying, according to the United Nations statistics, the total population of the world will reach 9.7 billion by 50-50. Between the years 2015 and 2050, half of the world's population growth will happen in the following countries. Now listen: India, Nigeria, Pakistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, United Republic of Tanzania, United States of America, Indonesia, and Uganda. Here you already pick up that the majority of the countries that will contribute to world population are in Africa. And of course, we know what the population agenda of the world is
Mm,
all about. But it also tells you that the future of the world workplace, the future of the world market, the marketplace is in Africa, because this is where the people are going to come from. Okay,
mm.
so there are some more statistics in there about population by 2050, and then we show you places. This is the city of Johannesburg from above.
Yeah.
This just for you to have an idea. People who don't know Africa, people who know Africa from the kind of pictures that we were talking about yesterday, we want you to have a different picture. There is another Africa that you need to know. And P, I want to say a lot of people who spend holidays in the best places in Africa are people who come from abroad. You know, they are
Mm,
Europeans, Americans, and Asians. But one thing that they always do is that they go to these beautiful places, they spend time there, and then they go to the townships and take pictures and put them on social media and take them home
yeah.
to continuously perpetuate that disadvantaged picture of Africa, perception of Africa that they have. But many people will not show you these nice places that
Yeah.
they go to.
Can you remember the conversation we had when I went to the townships and so on? I mean, my friends were
Yes,
saying, send us pictures, send us pictures. I didn't send a
yes,
single picture, you know,
yes, I
um,
remember.
because because when I looked at the townships, I saw villages in my country, and I felt a connection with the people there. And I'm thinking,
Mhm,
I said, there's nothing here that you want to see. There's the same thing at home. You got same things
mhm,
here, you got there. Um, I see people that I grew up with. I see replicas in South Africa. I'm like, oh my God, that's Claudette, that's Jean, that's I could see them there.
yeah, I
So I
remember.
didn't take any pictures. Yeah,
But also because what I loved about what you said, P, was that I don't want to expose the vulnerability of my
right,
people. And that
precisely.
was very powerful to me. That was very powerful.
I think
Um,
I try to protect our bodies. We have.
mm,
I feel like in some cases we must protect the bodies of Black people and kids and stuff like that, because there's so much going on with exploitation of the human body, especially
mhm,
melanin people. Yeah.
mhm. And melanin, talking about melanin, I would love for us to have another conversation on melanin. Our melanin skin color, melanin is currently, go online please and Google, melanin is the most expensive selling mineral, even though the melanin that is being sold is artificial compared to gold. Melanin is now 5 times more expensive than gold in the market. And I read some researches, I may share some links, that some of the top universities in the world, Harvard University, University of London, or the likes of them, Asian, well, the American, Asian, Australian, and European universities, they have been doing research for a very, very long time on how
Mm.
to create melanin, because the melanin that we have is very protective. It makes people, Black people, not too exposed to cancer, not vulnerable to cancer. But the white skin color is. So they're trying to create artificial melanin so that that can be used on other skin colors to
Wow.
help them prevent cancer. I'm not telling you stories. I could share links with you. They are in scientific magazines and online blogs. It's not something that is hidden. There are pictures of how they're testing this on rats. They
Mm.
show you the white rat, and then they test it a couple of times, and they show you how the skin color the color is changing. By saying this, I want us to learn how to appreciate the melanin, to love the melanin. It's the most expensive mineral in the world today. And some people in some part of the world, the scientists, they're trying to create melanin for their
Mm.
people. So that said, P, I said we'll be having this conversation. We'll
Yes,
be
yes, yes.
touching on so many things.
Where are we now?
So
Use that book so we can keep on
back
track.
to the
Yeah.
book. So back to the book, you'll see the top most populated countries in world ranking. So in place number one is China, India, USA, Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan, and then the first African country is Nigeria, that comes in the seventh position. Now I'll
Hmm.
just keep that and go further. This is
Yeah.
a beautiful view of Cape Town from above. And I think during the World Cup in 2010, many people got to see that stadium. It's just a jewel, the way
Yeah.
it stands out there. And Mosquito Zangalo is always coming back with questions. Now, chapter 4 is how many regions are there in Africa? And of course, we did mention that before. Here they go into detail. and talk more about the regions. And in between, you have a map of Africa that shows you the 5 regions that we're talking about, so you know them. And this picture, this is the biggest cathedral in Africa, and it is said that it is even bigger than what is it, the cathedral in Rome.
St. Peter's
It's
Basilica.
found in the basilica, yes. This is found in Yamoussoukro in Ivory Coast. It was built by the late President Ufebwani of Ivory Coast. It's a basilica that houses up to 7,000 people, I think standing. So there is quite a lot of space. It's the only basilica in the world where every seat has its own air conditioning. Your seat
Mm,
has your own individual conditioning. Okay, this is quite big. So this is where most of the Catholics within the continent go for pilgrimage. Those who don't go to Rome. I wanted people to see that. And next to that, I want our Muslim friends to see. This is the mosque. This is the Touba Mosque in Senegal.
mm,
It's also one of the biggest pilgrimage visits for Muslims. Those who don't go to Mecca, they go to Touba in Senegal. It's quite an impressive mosque, and it was built in 1887.
mm.
That is how old it is. So in chapter 5, we are asking about things that make Africa the best in the world. And my characters, my detectives, they talk to you about the oldest university. The oldest university in the world is in Africa. There is the university. There was the University of Timbuktu. This was like in the medieval time. This was the place where more books were sold in the world than in any other place in the world where more books were sold. And Timbuktu is still very prominent. We know that we have a huge archive of history and religious scripts in Timbuktu. There is also another university in Alexandria. It is also one of the oldest. I think those are the two oldest universities in the world that are located in Africa. And that tells us about our past. It tells us about our past. The civilizations that happened in Africa, also how intellectual Africans were. If we have the oldest universities in the world, I think that opens door for a lot of other conversations that we must be having, research that we
Right.
must be doing. And I hope that our kids, our young readers and families get curious about this. I think we saw this yesterday. This is Timbuktu. That
Mhm.
was the university. Some people call it. They said in the medieval time they used to call it the Paris of Africa, and I'm saying no. This is Timbuktu in Africa. We don't have to compare it to Paris. It is Timbuktu in Africa, and it was that jewel back at the time. Leo Africanos and most of the intellectuals of the time, they all met in Timbuktu in the medieval time. So I wish to get our kids, our readers, to get curious,
Uh,
to go do some more research
B,
on that. Yes,
B,
yes.
when I was growing up, or even now, when people use Timbuktu, they use Timbuktu to talk about the back of beyond, like a place where nothing happens. You come
Mm,
from Timbuktu,
mm,
you come from nowhere, like you come from so
mhm,
far and backwater and nothing going on with you, like misfit, like that.
mm.
So that's how I know people use Timbuktu. Yeah.
But Timbuktu was the most intellectual place in the world in the medieval times. So much happened in Timbuktu. Trade happened there. Traders used to come from around the world, from Asia and from Europe to Timbuktu. Again, you have the library for some of the oldest religious script in the world. They are found in Timbuktu. People, it's out of ignorance, the ignorance that people have of Africa, and because it is so normal to be ignorant about Africa, people can put it out there without any inhibitions, without even asking questions. It's just very normal because people will not ask, do you really know what Timbuktu is? And I wish that the kids who read this book, when someone says something like that, you come from Timbuktu, they may say, thank you for reminding me that I come from one of the most powerful intellectual places in the world.
Mm,
So, and then in this book, there is something also very important that I want to mention, P. This is the Ishango bone. The Ishango
mhm,
bone is said to be the bone that carries the first evidence of arithmetic that developed into mathematics. It
mhm.
was, it's from the Ishango people in today's DRC. There is another I just came across another one, Limbombo bone from Southern Africa. It also carries the first signs of mathematics. So
Mm.
mathematics originated in Africa, not in Greece, not Pythagoras, like many people know. So, and if you
Mm.
ask yourself the question, where is this bone today? I will tell you, P. It is found in the private museum of King Leopold
Mm.
in Belgium. And if you know the role that King Leopold played in destabilizing the Central Africa, the DRC, if you know how many people were murdered, if you know how they plundered the DRC, Patrice Lumumba was murdered under terrible conditions. So when you
Yeah.
know the history and you see this very important historical evidence, that is not even in Africa. And with this,
Mm.
you go when you go to the museums in the US, in Europe, around the world, you find so much evidence of African civilization, so much evidence
Mm.
of African um, uh, greatness, so much
Mm.
evidence was taken away. And so when you look at this and you ask yourself the question, why, if Africa was so poor, why did they stay for so long? Why did they
Yeah.
destroy the civilization? Why did they take all these evidences right out into their museums? And
Mm.
the kids in Africa, you can't go ask for a visa to go check these things out in the museums in New York or in Belgium or in Britain. No one will give you a visa. But these are part of our culture. This is our
Mhm.
legacy. This is our heritage. And I just want kids to know whether we have them with us or not, you must know that they existed. And that must lead you to asking some questions about how civilized, how great Africa was before colonization and enslavement.
Yeah.
Okay. So just for fun, the biggest frog in the whole world is found in Equatorial Guinea, between Equatorial Guinea and Africa. You see, our detective, they touch on serious things and then they go for fun, they go for nature, they go for history,
Yeah.
and it's a mixture of that kind of learning. So this is Emperor Haile Selassie. He was the last emperor of Ethiopia, and we know that Ethiopia was one of the African countries that was never colonized.
Mhm.
We know how much he fought against the colonizers. And then in the end, we have some words that are mentioned. I explained them. Timbuktu, Nobel Prize winners. It comes somewhere in the conversation, and the legacy, heritage, Ishangobon. So just trying to explain some of those
Mhm.
words that come in, so kids can get a better understanding. So P, this is
Yeah.
basically the book. This is the Garden Road in Cape in South Africa,
Right.
the beautiful scenic road. And then we introduce the next. This is these things that you see them in
Yes.
another book. You see this.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch on this because it comes in another book, The Wonders of
Right.
Africa. You see them right there. So that is what we have in book two. It's quite rich. And I invite parents and whoever wants to discover Africa from another perspective. This may be the book that you use to ignite the conversation at
Right.
home. So, Pete, before I pass it over to you, can we just acknowledge what is happening on
Yes,
Facebook?
please. Yeah,
So,
I can.
Nagwa,
Yeah.
oh wow, you're here again. I see you. We see you, Nagwa. You're always here. Thank you so much for always taking the time. I used to give workshops about Egypt, my country to I used to give workshops to Egypt, my country, to Japanese elementary school children. So when
Mm.
I ask students where is Egypt on the map, I used to give a hint. It is in Africa. And many of the children did not know where Africa was on the map. P, you
Mm.
see, that is in
Wow.
Japan, where you are
Yeah.
right now. Go around and ask your students where Africa is and see what answer they will give you. She says, wow, elements are in the book. Mhm.
Yes,
Uh,
I thought about that. Hmm.
yeah, Geraldine says, greetings from Washington, D.C. Geraldine, we see you. Good morning.
Yes.
Grace says, very proud of you, ladies. And Sis Cornelia says, and I was taught that Timbuktu was, you come from far, far, far away with little
I'm not
civilization.
place.
Sis Cornelia,
Yes.
Timbuktu is the heart of civilization. This is where the colonialists started, and this is where so much destruction happened. Timbuktu used to be the empire of Timbuktu. Please go do me a favor and go Google the empire of Timbuktu, and you see so much more there. Okay, I don't want to. Geraldine says yes, they stole lots of historical facts from Africa. Grace says Keep on teaching us about our continent and the good things it's us. So yes, so much more is coming. If you have questions, please drop them. This is history time. This is legacy time. This is our time, and we are
Right.
all invited to the table to have a conversation. Yes, P. What is your
Yeah.
impression? What is your impression? You already shared a bit about Timbuktu.
Yeah. Yeah.
With this book
I
now,
I I learned a lot about Africa, even though it's named Where is Africa, there's so much richness in here, nuggets about what's there inside of Africa. Can you hear me?
yes, I hear you.
Yes, because I'm managing a dog here as well that's wanting to take over my life.
The dog is learning about Africa. That's nice.
Yes.
Kobe,
So, yeah. So it shifts the conversation from the negatives to the positives. But I observed that there are contradictions because we have these huge, seemingly modern buildings and installations in several parts of Africa. I am wondering who built these things? Who are the keepers of these um, replicas and relics and so on? Are they African people who are building these things? The very things and cities that we look at as part of Africa, who built them? Who built them and where is the money coming from and things like that?
P, I will answer that question in a different way. I will
Okay.
say whoever builds them, they can't build enough. They can build
Hmm.
enough given what is taken from Africa, given what was destroyed. If we look
Hmm.
at what Africa was before colonization, and how much, and the question that I always ask is, why was it destroyed? Why
Hmm.
was Africa torn apart? All the empires, the empire of Sondiata, the empire of Mali, the empire of Ghana, we had the Gold Coast, we had all these empires. We had the queens in Africa. We have queens that were rolling alongside kings. We did not have
Hmm.
gender disparities. It was very normal for women to work side by side by men. So much more was in place. When you look at gender equality and women's right, Europe fought for women's right. Look at European countries. See how many female presidents or prime ministers we've had there. See the fight of women for equality, and see those countries are those that came into Africa. So whatever is
Hmm.
being built, I want to say, whether they build it to replace what they broke, which was far, far more powerful, far more important, far more, I don't know, I don't find the word, far greater. I don't
Hmm.
care who is building them. I just know
Hmm.
that whatever is being built, we must make sure that we go in there. If sometimes the powers that be, even though so much money is going out of Africa, and we will see this when we talk about another book, the resources that go from
Right.
Africa into the world, and the question whether the world can exist without Africa. When you look at what is going out,
Right.
you realize that not even enough can come in. We're not talking about charity. We're not talking about charity.
Right.
When you look at the role that Africa plays in the world, the role that is not being spoken about. And I want to say, I
Right.
think I read an article where the just as a kind of simple example, where the CEO of Coca-Cola said, Africa is their biggest market the world over. Put
Hmm.
all the other markets of Coca-Cola in the world together, they will not reach the money that they're making in Africa.
Hmm.
And I think
Yes.
we'll come to talk about that at some point. I just want to say some of the buildings are still colonial relics. Some of the buildings were
Hmm.
put in to continue to colonize our minds, because the contents that you find in there, it's colonizing. It's brainwashing, but it is up to us again to go put the numbers together, to do the research, ask questions, become curious, and find other information that may be contradictory in these spaces.
Right.
So share a little bit of the I know Guyana in Buxton Village, in your Buxton Village, um,
Right. Hmm.
women who were taken out of Africa and enslaved, they bought
Yes.
Boxer Village. Can you share that story with us a little bit, just to see the strength of who Africans were? Because those of them who were taken, who survived the
Yeah.
enslavement journey up to right up to the Americas, what they did there
Yeah.
is for me the mirror of what was at the time when they were being taken away.
Yes. So the Africans were taken to Guyana and enslaved in on many plantations, as you would have read in books. And so I'm a direct descendant of people who were taken. I can't be very um, definite in saying that because there's another story that's there that says that not every African that lived in Guyana was a slave. They came on a ship.
Mhm,
People
mhm,
came at different times. Some of them came from America. They came from different places. Some came as indentured persons and stuff like
mhm,
that. That history is not very clear. But all I know is that when I want to think of the story of the African of the village, I want to think of people who were doers and makers, who took
mhm,
their circumstances and turned them into something golden. They decided that okay, they're going to be given this emancipation thing, but they didn't want just handouts. They used their monies and they bought a plantation or part of a plantation and made a village. So and they started what they call a village movement. And in the village movement, you have people who were laying out house lots. Like our village has three parts, and if you don't know it, you don't understand what went into the layout and the design. The front part, the middle part, and the back part. But the back part we call the back dam, and the back dam is where they would farm the land, and they would get their produce. And for every house lot in the front, there was a piece in the back where they could do their farming so that they can get their living. And out of that story, I see people who carved. Uh, what I would call a resistance movement. It was just part of their being because they weren't going to
mhm,
give up and lay down, And so this whole idea of this slave who was just, working and toiling and no resistance, they've always resisted, right? So I know the resistance stories, but I know of women who put their lives on the line. Like we have this story about the back dam or the village back dam was underwater and the crops were rotting and the stocks were dying. And these women, these pregnant women, put their bodies on the train line to stop a train that was carrying the governor. And as the poet Yusik Wayana said, it's not the train they stopped, it's the governor. And
mhm,
so I would look at, I just had this conversation today, I would look at the train as a symbol of certain things, and the women's bodies, because when you look at women's bodies, in our bodies, we carry the stories. They carry the stories of that suffering. And that suffering is, as they say now, it's passed down into DNA and it comes with trauma that carries on. But I don't just want to talk about stories of trauma. I want to talk about stories of resistance. And like I said, people of the village always had a connection to the continent because they would celebrate like Ghana Day before, when I was a child or even further back, because I didn't experience Ghana Day, but I heard about it. So they were harking back there. They have retentions. Some of the foods that they had in on the West African foods, that their names are retained or just changed. Certain practices persist. So the image of Africa in the village is a very rich and very diverse one. Talk about our
mhm,
proverbs. We have replete with proverbs in our life. They pepper our stories and our ways of being, that I feel like we have a story of Africa if we just look at certain traditions and certain cultural practices that can shine a light on perhaps what was before
mhm,
what you experience as even as an African. That,
mhm,
there are things that I can share with you that you can make more sense of to me as a girl
mhm,
from the village of African descent. So
mhm,
that whole lot is to say that villages, African purchased villages, came from people who, though bowed, were never broken. And we have to
mhm,
understand that Africans will never be broken. If our ancestors can go through all of that, we, I don't see that we can be broken, bowed but not broken.
I agree with you, and in the some of the books that we'll be looking at, like when we look at the book on colonization, what is colonization? When we look at the book on female presidents and a couple of other books that we're going to be talking about,
Mhm.
you will see evidence that the African woman is a very powerful woman. She's a very strong
Yeah.
woman. You also see a lot of the history of resilience and resistance and tenacity in all those stories. And I think there's just a tip of the iceberg. When you just go down to your family and check, go to your root and see who your great grandmother was, who your grandmother was, what is it that they did, during that time, the time that they lived. And some of them may never have learned how to read and write, like my grandmother. But
Right.
again, my grandmother politics. She did a whole lot of things. She brought a whole lot of changes. She organized the first women's conference in my village and around my where I come from before the Beijing women's conferences. So when you look at these women and what they did, and I think in some of the books we'll be talking about Yasantewa, we'll be talking about Queen Zinga and a couple of other queens and kings. You see how much they fought. You see how much they fought, how resilient they were, how intelligent they were, and that should give us a reason to be proud, to stand tall, to learn how to understand where we come from. Because when you know where you come from, when you know on whose shoulders you stand, there are two things that happen. First, you know that you can't allow yourself to go for mediocrity. You just can't
Mhm.
allow yourself, because if they didn't, you must not. You can't allow yourself to do that. And gives you the courage and also the permission to do certain things, to think great, to be great, and to ask certain questions, to go through life with an open eye, to be curious, and to, above all, to be proud of your Africanness. I don't know whether it's an English word, but I don't care. Your Africanness and your African heritage. So let me see. On Facebook, there's something coming up. Grace is okay, learning. Um, Keep on teaching us about the continent. We saw that. Sis Cornelia says, thank you so much for this clarification. Geraldine says, Africans were also taken to Barbados. I am a
Yes,
descendant of
that's true.
from Togo. Geraldine, there is one thing that I wish to suggest in book 4, where we talk, book 5, no, book 6, when we're talking about enslavement. There's something that I want to put out. You are not a descendant of slaves. You are a descendant of enslaved Africans. They were captured and enslaved. They were not born slaves. So sometimes when we say we're descendant of slaves, what that does in our subconscious is like we are a product of that. Our ancestors were not born slaves. They were captured and enslaved, and they were captured and enslaved because of their bravery, because someone needed the powers that they had, the knowledge that they had, the resources that they had, the tenacity that they had to work on their plantations, because they were great people. That's why they were captured. And my sister, you're not a descendant of slave. You are a descendant of great, great, majestic people. You are a descendant of royalties. And I wish that maybe you get that. I say this again because when my mentor in the UK, when she read the book that I wrote on enslavement, where I was saying, we should talk about enslavement, not about slavery, but not slaves, but enslaved Africans. She said that changed so much in her paradigm. It changed so
Mhm.
much about her and gave her permission on so much, because she realized, oh, I'm not a descendant of slaves like the same. And my sister, Erica Dunlap, she was the fourth Black Miss America. I remember one time she said to me, said, Beatrice, I envy you a whole lot. And I was like, why on earth will a Miss America envy me? She says, because when I trace my ancestry, it ends with slavery. That's how she put it at the time. It ends with slavery. You come from the mother continent. You speak the languages. You know the culture. You have all of this. And mine ends somewhere that is not, that doesn't make me proud. And this was one of the reasons why I write the book the way I write. And I said, we have to change our language. We need to change the language, because some of these words have been put out. We take them and we use without reflecting on them. And they were put out because they wanted to put us in a certain mindset. they wanted to put us in a certain box, calling us our ancestors slaves. They were not slaves; they were made slaves. That word is a man-made word, and I really wish that we will get this into our minds and change the language, because I think the moment we change that language, something changes also in our the way we perceive ourselves and the way we go through life. So, Sis Geraldine, I just
Okay.
wanted to
Yes.
add that. So she says,
Okay.
Mrs. P,
Yes.
Guyanese have a strong artifix. What is it? Aftix. Guyanese have a strong aftix.
I don't
Okay,
know.
P, we're coming to the end
Yes.
of the
We're
session
coming to the
today.
end of this, and we have to wrap it up because we have another program going on after this,
Yeah.
and people are texting me already. So, thank you so much for this discourse. As I say, we're not here to end the conversations. We are here to continue conversations, to open up doors for more conversations. As we say from the village, Mati tell Mati and friend tell friend, let the story go, and we can come back tomorrow night. And what are we talking about tomorrow night?
Tomorrow we're asking the questions whether all Africans are black. You see, behind
Mm,
my titles, I always hide a lot of things. Are all Africans black? Yes, that's what we'll be talking about, and you'll be amazed at the kind of nuggets that are in this book, and the kind of provocative contents or conversations that you might have. So I want to say thank those of you who are hanging out with us and saying the books are available on www.globuntubooks.com. You'll find some of them on Amazon. Um, if you like the conversation, please do not forget to like the page, share it with people around you. Those of you who are teachers, if kids are on holidays, parents who are juggling from home, doing work at home, this may be a space where you want to bring the children in to learn some of this history. We write the books for them. If you can't get the books yet, maybe this is the place where they should come get a hint of what this is all about. So again, we invite you. If you have questions, share them with us. You have content, share them with us. Let's share, because it is all about unleashing, unveiling, and celebrating our African heritage and realities, whether we're based in the diaspora or on the continent. So
mhm.
tomorrow we make it another date, P, and we go after the questions whether all Africans are black.
Okay. And thank you all for listening and sharing. Have a good day. And for those who are in my part of the world, have a good evening. We'll see you next
Okay,
time.
bye.
Bye.